Hey everyone, welcome to The Podluck, a podcast about the intersection between culture, faith, and the Korean American Adventist experience. Welcome to today's show. I'm joined by my friend and co-host Jason Kim. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Jason, I'm good. Jason, you went through, you just had a medical procedure done today.
I did this
Are you
morning.
okay?
I'm doing all right. I had an ingrown toenail that was bothering me for like 2.5 years. They basically chopped my toenail off.
That's crazy. But
Yeah.
Jason, when he texted me today about it, he needed to push back our recording because he said he had to have quote unquote surgery. And so I was very worried for you. I was like really concerned. And then you told me it was about your toe, and then I was kind of mad at you. But I'm glad you're okay. And he showed me his toe. It's covered in bandages, but I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm a professional. I'll make it through. I made a commitment. I see my
Power through.
Power through.
In spite of the condition of your big toe. It's a big toe?
It's my big toe, so it's more painful because it's the bigger toe.
Yeah, and so we will mourn the loss of your quarter of your toenail.
Yeah. Apparently it's gone forever. Like they're like, it'll never grow back.
Really?
That's what my doctor told me. Because I wanted to clarify. She's like, oh yeah, it just won't grow back.
So you're just going to have a section of your toe without a toenail now?
Yeah, apparently. So it'll just always grow narrower than my other toe.
How long can we talk about this on this podcast? Because I have more questions. But
I mean, we'll try to get through it quickly. I don't know if I can answer that. I'm not a podiatrist.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm imagining you're gonna have like a really skinny nail now, and like your skin will be exposed.
Yeah,
now
so that's
on
the part
side?
I'm curious about. The exposed, I guess, nail bed or whatever. I don't know if that just kind of like gets calloused over or...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was pretty painful?
So she injected 4 numbing shots. That was the most painful because she's hitting like joints and nerves. And then once it's numb, it's just very disconcerting because you can feel her like pull and cut and like do stuff.
Oh, okay.
That was probably the worst for me because, yeah, like I don't like that.
Did you cry? It's okay if you cried.
I didn't cry. The doctor was like, if this bothers you, just look at your phone. So I tried to like cover my toe with my phone. I was shaking though. I'm not gonna lie. I was shaking.
You're sweating from your eyes. It's
No,
okay.
I was
It's
not
okay.
sweating from my eyes. They did say it was a
so
really
how about-
big piece
yeah.
though. Like the doctor and the
Did you
nurse were
see
both
it?
like, she showed me. I mean, it was just a nail covered in blood. She's like, yeah, it's big. And I was like, thank you.
Okay. So if our listeners want a peek, maybe we can share it with them. And maybe next episode we'll get an update on how your toe is doing. But for today, Jason has a pretty interesting topic that I've never really thought about, but I can see where it's coming from as it relates to us as Korean Americans. So, Jason, why don't you kind of lead us into the conversation and the topic for today?
Yeah, so we mentioned like this show we're gonna go in different directions, and one of the things we really want to do is talk about culture and faith and kind of current events or things that's happening in kind of the cultural zeitgeist and talk about that. And we're a little bit behind on this topic, although I feel like it's kind of a big enough thing where it'll grow. But we were recording this early April. A few months ago, there was this kind of online controversy slash like online like beef or battle between South Korea and like the Southeast Asian countries. So I think what triggered all of this was there was a K-pop concert in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And I guess there was like a guy from Korea who was taking pictures, who was not like, he was not accredited photographer. He just brought his gear, and there's rules in this venue about what kind of camera equipment you're allowed to bring. In fact, I think you're not allowed to bring any cameras, but he had like, a huge telephoto lens and like his kit and everything. And I think he was asked to like leave because he had this thing, and he was making this like, big fuss, and people were recording, and I think just kind of escalated where like people in Korea were kind of like attacking Southeast Asians, and then Southeast Asians were kind of like trying to boycott Korean products and culture, and it kept escalating. And I think one of the big escalators was there's I don't know if they're considered K-pop, but there's like a girl band from Southeast Asia, I think the Philippines, and they recorded a music video, and it's like recorded kind of in the Philippines. So they use like kind of Filipino landscape. So there's like waterfalls, there's like a big scene in like a rice paddy, a rice field, and a lot of Korean people online were like making fun of this music video, like saying how it was like low class, low budget, like you're recording in front of rice paddy, things like that, and that kind of took it to another level of thing. And it kind of, for me, it was just so interesting because it brought to light kind of how Koreans kind of view themselves and position themselves. I think on a larger scale, when we talk about Asia, when you talk to someone who's not Asian, be like, oh, I'm gonna go to Asia, the first thing you think of is East Asia, Korea, Japan, and China. But we forget that there's like Southeast Asia, there's India, there's a lot of Asian countries in between India and China, and like among the East Asian countries, I always felt like Korea had this like weird place where, I always say this, like Koreans have both a superiority complex and an inferiority complex. They feel like they're kind of above certain countries, but then there's also this inferiority complex from like Japan and China, China being, massive and huge, and Japan kind of, obviously the history, but also just in the terms of like cultural footprint globally, Japan has a less now, but when I was growing up, Japan had a significantly bigger cultural footprint than Korea. And I don't know about you, but like when I was growing up, I'm a big Apple guy. I love Apple products, and my dad used to like, I can't tell if he was like joking angry or actually angry, but he'd always be like, "Why aren't you buying Samsung phones?" It's like, I don't like Samsung phones, and it was kind of this like, why aren't you buying more Korean products? Which I don't use. I use Apple. Like I love Sony, and so there's that mindset of like, superiority complex, inferiority complex. And what we wanted to talk about is like, not that specifically, but how does that trickle into church and kind of impact Korean ministry culture and also, English ministry culture as well. So do you have any like initial thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it's in California. When I was pastoring in California, there was a large Filipino population, and within our Adventist church, actually, there's a lot of Filipino groups and churches, and trying to think about what have I seen as far as like the experience between the two groups. And I think what you're asking, Jason, which is number one, not a hard question to answer. If we think of it in general, the general question you're asking is, hey, are Koreans racist? And like the answer is obviously like, yes. I think Koreans are racist. I mean, obviously I can't speak to everybody, but kind of that first generation growing up in a part of LA, and my parents working in a part of Los Angeles, which was North Hollywood, but kind of that first generation growing up in a part of LA, and my parents working in a part of Los Angeles, which was North Hollywood, in a convenience store, like that whole, like everything you've seen on the TV shows, like that's real. How Korean workers view, customers who are Black, Hispanic, and all this stuff. Like, but the harder part is, what about other Asians as well? Like, is there a sense of superiority over them? Obviously, like, case by case, we can't speak in full generalities. Like, there are some people who are not, so I want to throw that out there, that there are some full, Korean people who are very much not like that. And then, there probably are. I think the thought that I had is Koreans do a lot of mission work to Southeast Asian countries. And if you think about like where Koreans go to do mission work, I would say like it's predominantly Southeast Asia. I don't think it's like a thing as much for Koreans to go to Africa and, like South America. But there's tons of Korean work in, Philippines and Indonesia and, Cambodia. We recently, a couple of years ago, we went on a trip to Cambodia. So along with that, mission experience, there's like, you have to kind of fight against it, but there's kind of a mentality of like, oh, we are here to help you. And that's a really good thing. But if you're not careful and not cognizant of that, there can be this sense of like, we are here to help you because we are like better in some way or shape or form to you. And that's probably can lead to a sense of superiority and element of racism within our culture.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of talk about kind of the mission aspect of it in a little bit, but I think this is cross culture, right? This is not just Korean. This is just maybe even human nature. But there seems to be a tendency where skin tone makes a big difference. And this first came on my radar when I was in college. My best friend, his roommate, was Cambodian. And then when I was growing up, one of my really close friends was also Cambodian. But, so we were talking to this guy, my best friend's roommate, and he was like, oh yeah, in Cambodia, there's like two different types of people. There's like lighter skinned Cambodians and darker skinned Cambodians. And he was like, darker skinned Cambodians are viewed as, less than the lighter skinned, and like that's true on a very general like basis. And you kind of see some of that, East Asian, especially Korean people, like there's a very high priority placed on like the shade of your skincare products.
Yeah, that's true.
Like driving around Orange County, like there's like those ajumas who have like the huge hat with the sunscreen, with the scarf, with the arm thing, with the window shield, with the visor. Like they're like vampires, They
look like Darth Vader.
Yeah, and like it's because they want to keep, which like, hey, it's important. Like skin cancer, we need to be more careful about sun exposure, but like, that's kind of an uncomfortable area that I think we don't talk about, which I guess you and I are happy to jump in and frolic in.
When I went to Philippines years ago, again on like a short-term missions thing, I remember going to a store, and I don't know, maybe this is very common, but it was the first time I ever saw skin whitening soap. Like that's how it was marketed. It was a bar of soap, and it said skin whitening soap. And so like, yeah, that spirit of like, be as pale as possible. It's definitely a thing, and definitely right now too.
Yeah, I think so. And the bigger question is, how does this impact our churches, or does it impact our churches? Kind of like you said, like in Southern California, we obviously have a very, very wide spectrum of different Asian cultures. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but if you look at North America, the division, NAD, by number, there's more Filipino Adventist members than Korean. I think by like 1,000 or so. There are, though, more than double the amount of Korean churches than Filipino churches, which I found
that's interesting.
Very interesting.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, Korean churches, we plant a lot. And when I say plant, I mean we split and
Jason,
fight.
They can't see your air quotes on the podcast.
They can if they watch us on YouTube, but yeah, air quote, we plant a lot. I'm insinuating Korean churches split a lot more than I think other Asian churches, especially Filipino churches. I think that's really what it is. Plus, I think Filipino communities are a little bit more centralized in certain areas. Koreans seem to be a little bit more scattered. There's, Korean people in Alabama, Alaska, Illinois, places like that. So that could be another reason. But as far as like church, I haven't really seen a lot of like conflict about this. I don't know if you have or you have any experience.
Well, I'm trying to think about like where I've been, and I mean, there's an element of, I feel like there's two sides of this, like superior, if there is a superiority complex, there's the side of we are great. That's one side, and then the other side of like, you are less, and I feel like I see less of the latter. I see less of like Koreans being proactively like putting people down, but I see more of like a sense that we are just really, really wonderful. And I see that most often in the desire to continue the Korean culture in the church. So like it's not a sense of racism as in like someone who's not Korean, whether they're Southeast Asian or a different ethnicity completely, where they're like, you can't come here. It's not that, but they're there and they're polite, but there is a worry on the minds of the Koreans and like the original people about like, oh, how are we going to continue to keep our church Korean? Are we going to continue to have a Korean church? So like, I feel like that's regardless of what ethnic group, whether it's Southeast Asian or Hispanic or Black or whatever, that is on the minds of like first generation. In Portland, where I am at right now, there is probably the largest Asian group is the Vietnamese population here.
Okay.
And we have a handful attending our church, or like who are Vietnamese American, that kind of thing. And within the second generation EMs, like I don't see a problem. I don't see an issue like in our context right now with any kind of sense of racism or treating people differently because they're Southeast Asian.
Right.
How about you? Have you seen stuff?
No, and I think the reason why is like if we're talking about second generation English ministry congregations, there's this almost expectation that the church, to an extent, should be multi-ethnic, right? So how much depends on the church and the culture, but I don't think there are many EM second, third generation churches that are like, no, we want to remain mono-ethnic. I haven't come across any, and the first ring, so if the first ring inside is Korean, the next ring outside, it's non-Korean Asians. And chances are, within Adventism, it's going to be Filipino or Cambodian or Vietnamese. There's very little, Chinese Adventist or even Japanese Adventist. They come too, but yeah, like that next ring of expansion of going beyond just Koreans is Southeast Asians. And that's kind of an interesting, I don't know if you want to call it ironic. I don't think it's ironic, but it's just a kind of interesting thing. Like that's our first level of going beyond our borders. And yeah, like you mentioned, I think for a lot of second generation EM churches, it's not a thing. Like no one notices, no one necessarily cares. I do try a lot to it just happens so naturally. You have to be very intentional, but like to not just slip Korean things into like our worship service. I used to try to tell all my leaders, like, please don't use Korean language, and if you do, you have to translate it, because not everyone here is Korean or speaks Korean. And I think that's something we have to intentionally do, which, to your point, it runs counter to like the holding on to Koreanness. We're trying to minimize the use of Korean here, and there's like a desire to raise the Korean. So it's, that's where tension comes from. But I think I felt this the most, like you mentioned before, in overseas missions. I feel like domestically here, it's not really a big thing, or at least the places I've been wasn't a big thing. But in 2018, the church I was at, LA Central, we went on a mission trip to Mongolia. It was funny because the mission trip team leader, she asked me like, "Oh, Pastor, like you're gonna go to Mongolia with us, right?" And like I didn't want to go on a mission trip with the Korean side, but I couldn't say no. So I was like, "Okay, I'll ask the EM, and if they go, I'll go. But if they don't, I have to stay." And I was like, "No one's gonna want to go on a mission trip." So I announced it, and like a bunch of people wanted to go, which I'm really happy because I had an amazing time in Mongolia. But for people who don't know, Mongolia, structurally or organizationally, they belong under the Korean Union. And so their leadership from like the conference level comes from Korea. And so the person kind of in charge of, Adventist churches in Mongolia, he's a Korean guy, Korean pastor. And like, Mongolia, it's kind of like Southeast Asia. Like there's like a very urban center, Ulaanbaatar, and then there's a lot of rural areas outside of it. And just, man, like the first thing that we all felt, the EM group that went, was like, it was a little uncomfortable the way that they would treat the Mongolian people who were there.
Okay.
And it's like, I mean, I don't know if I can use this phrase, but like, it was like poverty porn.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't. All right, man. What is that?
Okay, so it's like, it's like.
Okay, hold on. I feel like I know what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
like
explain?
Using...
All
right, so this is what I'm guessing. I've not really heard that, but it's like using scenes of like exploiting almost scenes of poverty.
Yeah.
To like outsiders.
Kind of. Yeah, and it's just like.
Okay, so how did they do that?
It's like crazy. We were on a safari.
I'm super curious.
Right? And like
safari. You were on a safari.
Yeah, but instead of observing like giraffes and tigers, we were observing like Mongolian family walking to school, Mongolian family grocery shopping. And it's like, oh, okay, look at them. Look at how like poor and suffering they are. And look at them. Oh my, So the thing about Mongolia is they're landlocked, So water is actually super rare. It's incredible. I saw them do a potluck for like 35 people, and they did all the dishes with a third of a bottle of water. It's like insane how they're able to like use super little water. Like their plates, you eat with like a plastic, like almost like a Ziploc bag over it, so that you don't have to wash the plate. You just throw the plastic away. And they'd be like, oh, like these poor people can't even afford water. It's like, no, it's just because they're like 5 million miles away from the ocean. Like it's, there's no, it doesn't rain much. So like, it was like that. And like, even just the way the Korean guy was like treating the pastors there was very like, hey, go do this. Hey, why don't, it was like a KM-EM pastor dynamic, but like 50 times worse. And it was just gave all of us the ick, and I feel really bad for the pastors because they like do an amazing job. Like it's really hard to do ministry there, and it was like really awesome to see like how they connect with the young people there. That's when I was like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah, I feel like there's multiple things going on there because like we know that like the Korean organizational hierarchies are really strong, and so there's probably like an element of like he's their boss, right? he's like kind of their boss or overseer or supervisor. So it feels kind of like this sense of superiority. But I'm sure there's a part of the part of the racial or ethnic element
Mm-hmm.
in that as well. Um, and I don't know. I feel like Koreans in like ministry settings
Mm-hmm.
have, I don't know if like we're just, I don't know, because we're obviously very different, but like I've always seen and sensed that they don't think about kind of that, like, hey, maybe we should like show these things off to people for like
Mm-hmm.
our like, because I feel like, maybe I'm sure they did it to, I don't know, to show you guys how people are living so that you can help more or feel good
Yeah, I'm
about it.
sure
But I
that
don't
was the
know.
intent.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Koreans have this intent, but sometimes they do it in such a way where it's like kind of for lack of a better, this might be a strong term, but like it lacks dignity, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the, the old, infomercials where you see like the poor kids and there's a police
Mm-hmm.
sponsored child and they show all those kids with the flies and like,
Right. Yes.
you know, I don't know. I feel like there's a first generation kind of an old school, and that's like a Korean thing too, to
Mm-hmm.
like not really worry about those kinds of things. But like that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, and to an
What
extent,
did
I
they?
understand, huh?
What did they call it? Like they didn't call it. You called it a safari, right? Like they were
Oh
saying
yeah,
like
yeah,
let's
yeah.
do a safari.
No, no,
Okay.
but like, so like where we stayed versus
Sapari,
where.
sapari.
I mean, we were all on a. It was weird because like our mode of transportation was a Korean tour bus, like with like the sequin like thing, like is
Yeah.
crazy. No, just like driving through the city. We did actually go on like an outing. So we all left the hotel room and like kind of walked around the city. Um, Much like a safari, I guess. And the other thing that was just kind of weird was like I remember vividly like when I was meeting with our EM team, I was like, like we want to leave a zero cultural footprint, guys. Like we're here to serve, so as best we can, we're gonna adjust to how they do things and adjust. We're visitors in their country,
Yeah.
and we need to, our motto is like zero cultural footprint. Man, that hotel, they made them cook Korean food 3 days a week or 3 meals a week, 3 meals a day. Like
Oh.
everything was Korean. I assumed we were just gonna eat Mongolian food because you're in Mongolia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like the staff had to make a complete new menu just for us. The churches there when they did like dinner at like VBS had to be Korean. EM, we were kind of disappointed because we're like, we want to try Mongolian food.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, like the concept of like minimize our cultural presence is not really a thing.
Yeah, that's not a concern
Right.
so much.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any experiences from your times doing mission work in you've been on a lot more than I have.
Yeah, well, so I've been to like I went to Cambodia
Mm-hmm.
recently. I went to Philippines, but when I went to Philippines, it was not with a Korean group.
Okay.
It was with PUC, and so there's like we're a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of different uh, uh different ethnicities going, and
Mm-hmm.
it was great, and I thought that was really awesome. I was really blessed in that meeting. I feel like the recent Cambodia trip is probably the more where I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt I didn't really see any concern because I think the difference was number one, we took our group was only EM
Right.
when we went to Cambodia, and the people we went to work with, they're Korean, but they like, I mean, they totally live there, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't, and they live like it's at the school,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like a part of the community there. The kids like, so the director, his daughter speaks
Mm-hmm.
fluently, Cambodian, and I don't know, I definitely saw like I didn't see anything like that in that setting. But like I was saying at the beginning, as we started this episode, like it's hard to separate ourselves from that mentality that we are differentiate, like we're different and maybe like even better because we are here to help you and you need help and we are the ones to bring it. And that when you have that relationship with anybody, that automatically creates some kind of differential and easy to slip into the like that the attitudes or of racism or superiority. And so I don't know. I never talked to the director there. Like, hey, so do you feel like you're better than all these people? Like, I didn't do that. But there's also like going back to what you said. Like, there is this weird thing about skin color, you know, and what people want and what people strive for, and it's like really sad, you know. But there is this like that's a thing. I think people. You know, we come in from America and like a lot of us are very light-skinned Koreans, you know, and they would say things about that. So it wasn't like Koreans were like, hey, you're so dark. Like, we would like do that. But they would talk to us about our skin, you know, and they would, and I've seen that in other countries as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, the difficult part is when we talk about missions is like the reality is a lot of times that dynamic is true. Like when you go to a country to do mission work, you are there because you have the means to go to this place and provide support, whether it's, you know, manual or spiritual or financial. And I don't think we're necessarily like not saying that doesn't exist, but I think the point is because that dynamic exists, it's so easy to slip into like a social ethnic hierarchy. And so, you know, if any group's gonna be going on mission trips anywhere in the world, like I think it's important for the group to kind of always be aware of that possibility of slipping into something like that. It's really easy to slip into. Just kind of being ultra aware of like, okay, you know, we're serving, but we're here to serve and we're here to do good things and help and, you know, stuff like that.
I think when I've gone with Korean groups to missions and we have like some kind of a training, it's been fairly rare for there to be any type of cultural sensitivity training to go with the missions.
Right.
But last year, I went to Uganda with World Vision. So World Vision, the gigantic NGO, like the biggest nonprofit in the world. But when we got our training, they had like all this stuff about culture and like not about like about how not to, you know, project your Americanness and like how to, like you said, leave a very, very small, if at all, a cultural footprint. And they told us what things were okay and what things were not okay. Like they're saying one things you can do is like the drivers that would drive around, they love American snacks. So bring snacks and share with them. But other things like don't do that. Don't talk about these things. Don't ask them these things. And we're in a really impoverished area. And so I appreciated that a lot. And I don't know, Korean churches don't often think about that when they do this kind of work.
Yeah. You know, I think we'll kind of wrap up our conversation here. We're going to actually do a continuation of it for our next episode. I'm actually really excited about this one because it's like an offshoot. We're going to be talking about Koreans and Korean Americans. When I say Koreans, I mean people who live in Korea, and Korean Americans, you know, Koreans who live in America. And there's Korean people who live in Korea view Korean Americans very differently than the way Korean Americans view people in Korea. And there's this kind of keeping Korean Americans at an arm's distance that goes on. Like I really want to talk about that. Looking forward to that.
That is interesting.
It is. And like, when's the last time you were in Korea?
Ooh, that was like almost over 10 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So like, it's been a while for me too. So like, you know, I want to kind of talk about that too, and what it's like to be in Korea when you're very plainly, obviously not born in Korea, and stuff like that. But yeah, that was our podcast for today. We hope it kind of started conversations wherever you are. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed our podcast. Join us next time.
Remember, the idea of this is like, you know, these are conversations we'd have after church. So I'd be curious, like you can talk to people at church, say, hey, I listened to this podcast and they talked about this. Like, what do you think? Do you think there's racism from Koreans towards Southeast Asians? And we'd love to hear what you think and what you heard in your churches and in your groups.
As always, thank you for listening. You can, again, share us with your friends, with your church members, and you can watch the video version of this on YouTube, and you can go to our soon-to-be-created website. Thank you for spending time with us.